What's going on, everyone? Yesterday, the Lakers pulled off a great win against the Memphis Grizzlies, proving time and time again that they are there. They're right there. They're winning games and staying in tight games against everybody. Doesn't matter what team it is. The good teams, the bad teams, everybody. We're struggling to close out games, definitely, but it doesn't help when you're missing Anthony Davis, when you're missing, Lonnie Walker, Austin Reeves. Some of these games might not even be as close if we had those guys. But regardless, huge win. Russell Westbrook had a monster game. You had Dennis Schroeder who had the big play of the game and hit crucial free throws down the stretch. LeBron James struggled offensively, but still was doing mini LeBron James things, and we wouldn't have won without him. Role guys stepping up. This team looks like a team that can compete night in and night out. Even if we stood pat, I still have a lot of faith in this Lakers team. I think Anthony Davis back, we fully healthy. I really think we can make a push. And when you look at the Lakers' remaining schedule, there really is a lot to be hopeful and excited for down the stretch with or without a trade. So the Lakers right now sit at 21-25. So they're 4 games out of 500. They're about two and a half games out of a playoff spot, not even a play-in spot, just a playoff spot, which would be huge, right? And our next handful of games are really winnable games, right? So I wanted to break this down. So the remainder of January, we got the Blazers, which I think we can win. The Clippers, I think we can win because they've been struggling as of late. And Anthony Davis may be back for that Clippers game. He's supposed to come back somewhere in between the Clippers game and the Celtics game. So if he could come back at those games, then I definitely think the Clippers game is a winnable game. Spurs are a tanking team. That's a winnable game. We could easily, by the time we go on the road trip to the Boston Celtics, I really believe that we could be 24-25, which means we're only a game out of 500. We have Anthony Davis back, and who knows? At that point, we could have a real turnaround. I also would like to see Anthony Davis come back during the Clippers or the Spurs game, so that way he could get a game or two under his feet before we go and play the Boston Celtics, right? But that's a game that I think we can keep close enough to maybe potentially win. But even if we lose to the Celtics game, right? Like, let's say we win the next 3, we're 24-25. We lose to the Celtics, we're 24-26. The Nets without Kevin Durant, I think, is a very winnable game. I think we can beat the Knicks. So we could go the rest of the way. Now that we beat Memphis, we could go 5-1 out of our last 6 games in January. That would be huge, right? Because if we win the Nets and the Knicks game, then all of a sudden we're at 500 going into February. And if you look at February's schedule, again, I think it's a very winnable schedule, right? I think the Pacers is a team we can beat. The Pelicans, they're going to be tough, but I think we can beat them. The Thunder, same thing. I think they're going to be tough, but we can beat them. Milwaukee, I think, is going to be a little rough, but we've already beaten them once. The Warriors, I think we get one of these 2 games at least, right? We play the Warriors twice. I wouldn't be shocked if we get both of them, but I think we get at least one of those. The Blazers, again, I think is a winnable game. The Pelicans games, I think we get at least one of those, right? Because we play them twice too. And then the Mavericks, I think that next Mavericks game, I think we really show up for, and I really think we beat them. And then Grizzlies, of course, is going to be tough as always. But again, I think it's a winnable game. So if we could go into February at, let's say, 500, right? I mean, this is another winnable month. We could easily win, let's say, the Pacers. Let's say we win one of the Pelican games. Let's say we win the Thunder game. Let's say we win one of the Warriors games, right? Let's say we win the Blazers game and we win the Mavericks game, right? So that's 6 wins at minimum, I think, in the month of February. You're going to have a game or two that you probably win that, isn't here, or a game that, of course, you might have a game that you lose or whatever, but I think they should at least pull out 6 or 7 wins during this stretch out of, basically 10 games. I think you could win. You could go 6-4 during this stretch, maybe 7-3 during this stretch. And now you're 3 games over 500. But it gets even better because if you look, March, we have 15 games in the month of March. And I think like at least 12 of these games are very winnable, right? So again, Thunder, I think we can win. Timberwolves, I think we could beat. The Warriors, I think we could beat. Grizzlies are going to be tough, but, we just beat them. The Raptors, they might not even be a whole team at that point. The Knicks, right? I think we could beat the Knicks, the Pelicans, the Rockets, the Mavericks, the Magic, the Suns. We'll see what's happening with them. Thunder, and then we play the Bulls twice and the Timberwolves. Like, all of these games are very winnable games. Now, are we going to win them all? Of course not. But we could win, again, a majority, right? And then even, like, before we go play the Milwaukee Bucks, that's something else that I wanted to mention. Before we go play the Milwaukee Bucks on February 9th, that's the trade deadline. So we might even have a deal lined up by that point and that actually improves the roster. So we might be well over 500 come the end of March. And then our real push, our last real push, look at these games in April. Our last 5 games, we could easily go 5-0. Like, seriously, look at this. You got the Rockets, the Jazz, the Clippers, the Suns, and the Jazz. All 5 of those games are very, very winnable games. So if we're like, a game or two out of, like, say, the 4th seed or the 5th seed or, the 6th seed, because, like, let's say we go on this nice little stretch, this nice little run, this might be where we, gain traction to get to our playoff seeding that we want. Which team do we want to play in the first round type thing. By this point, hopefully Anthony Davis is good to go. Hopefully we have, a nice trade or something, whether it's Bojan or whatever. But seriously, I mean, our schedule the rest of the season, I think, is a very winnable schedule based on the way that we have played, right? I mean, we're still struggling to close out games. The refs haven't really helped us, but still, I think if we get Anthony Davis back, a lot of those close, winnable games that we lost, you win. If Anthony Davis was playing this entire time, we're probably well over 500. We're probably like the 5th seed right now, realistically. The way we've played, as close as we've played against some of these teams, you can't tell me Anthony Davis wouldn't have been a deciding factor. You can't tell me Anthony Davis isn't worth at least, 6 of the wins that we've lost, right? Like, of course he is. So, we should be well over 500 already, but we got to such a poor start, right? We've been really good. We're 7-4 over our last 11 games. Like, so we have a winning record without Anthony Davis, and some of those games were without LeBron James too. So, I mean, this is a team that is there, that's proven time and time again that they're there, and I really like our upcoming remaining schedule. I think with the right trade, a right move, I really think we could be in the thick of the playoffs. I'm not talking about play-in. I'm not talking about any of that stuff. It's still a very long season, right? We still have a lot of games to go. And we just need to basically stay over 500 the rest of the season. And we're in the playoffs. Not a play-in, a playoffs. And we've already been staying over 500 since. And so I just think that Anthony Davis comes back. We can find, it doesn't have to be a huge blockbuster. You don't need to take Russ in both seconds and go get Bradley Beal or something like that. We don't need that. Go get a couple pieces, starting level rotation guys. Go get a couple starting level rotation guys, whether it's Bojan and Alec Burke or, Josh Richardson and Doug McDermott or Jakob Poeltl or whatever. Whatever you got to do. You don't have to do the big home run trade. Take Patrick Beverley, Kendrick Nunn. If you have to do Lonnie Walker to make salaries match, then move Lonnie Walker. I really like Lonnie Walker, but the reality is we're probably not keeping him after this season. So if you can get some pieces that help now and the future, do that, right? It's not how you start, it's how you finish. And I say that over and over and over again. The Lakers have to finish the rest of the year strong. But luckily, the West is so tight and so wide open that we actually have a real chance of being in the thick of the playoffs. And once we get into the playoffs, even without a trade, once we get into the playoffs, I like where this team is at. I think this team is playing, some solid basketball without arguably their best player, definitely their defensive anchor. Anthony Davis is the difference between us being, a top 15 defense and us being a bottom 3 defense. That's how big of an impact he is. And so I really think that this is a team that can make some noise. You do a solid move or two, and I think the Lakers are right there. I think I would stack them up now against every team in the West. Right now, you add a couple solid pieces, I think we're there. I really do. And right now, we're currently still in the 13th place, which again, it is so tight. Right, just to put in perspective how tight this is, we are 2 games out of 6th place. Two games out of 6th place. And we're 13th right now. So 6th through 13th is currently decided by 2 games. we can make up 2 games easily, especially with AD coming back, especially with the remainder of our schedule, right? I really believe we could get into the top 6 rather easily. I think we should be a top 6 team, come playoff time. I really do. I think we have a nice little schedule. I think we got a favorable schedule. I think we had a schedule that we can absolutely win. We're gonna have to make up some ground without a doubt, but there's no way Rob Pelinka's looking at this and Jeanie. Well, it's mostly Jeanie, right? Because Jeanie's the one that's got to approve everything. Rob's tried to do some deals, and Jeanie's, shot him down. But I don't know how you, as the Lakers front office, are looking at this, just the landscape right now, the position the Lakers are in, and going, let's not do a deal. Right now, I don't think that a deal's happening tomorrow. I still believe no trade happens till probably close to the trade deadline, if not on the trade deadline. Right? I maybe you get like the Cam Reddish deal done or something like that. But I think realistically, like if we're gonna do a trade for like say Boyan or whatever, I don't think it happens until we get closer to the trade deadline, because teams just aren't making trades right now. Right? You have again a lot of teams that need to make decisions. Right? Like Portland. Portland's right now the 12th seed. Do they decide, hey, it's time to go? Like, let's say they lose to the Lakers tomorrow, right? Now the Lakers have a full game ahead of them. They're like, Dame's like, I don't want to be a 10th seed, so maybe they blow it. I'm not saying the Lakers go get Damian Lillard, but I'm saying like, who knows? Maybe they start trying to sell some pieces off, and they go, we're not good enough. We need to upgrade. We need to do something. The Phoenix Suns. Do the Phoenix Suns say, hey, it's a rough season. Let's take on some salaries. Let's unload some guys. Let's try to retool and clear this out. The Jazz. Do the Jazz all of a sudden become sellers? Right? There's talks about them selling Jared Vanderbilt. Mike Conley, guys like that. Like, do they start selling off pieces so they basically fall out of the playoff conversation? Right? Like, you got those teams that are on the cusp. I mean, in the Eastern Conference, right? You have like the Knicks, the Hawks, the Pacers, the Bulls, the Raptors, right? All of these teams that could end up being sellers. The Wizards are another team, right? The tanking teams, the Magic, the Hornets, the Pistons, do they start selling, right? The problem right now is there's not enough sellers for buyers, right? And until teams actually make a decision, we're not going to see any trades happen, right? You have some teams that believe like, okay, well, maybe if we're the 10th seed, maybe we can win, those 2 games, get into the playoffs, and maybe make some noise. You got teams like that are absolutely thinking that. And you got teams that are like, okay, well, let's wait. We're in the 6th seed, but we're only a game ahead of being in the 13th seed, right? So it's like, if we end up going on a losing streak here and now we're in 13th, do we start to blow it up, right? Like there's a lot of questions that could end up happening here. And if you're the Lakers, you got to remain patient, which I understand, but they got to eventually at some point this season, you got to make a move. You got to make some push for whatever, as many, pieces as you can get without trading Russ. I really believe you got to keep Russ. I think he's too valuable to this team right now as the 6th man, but if you can just go get like 2 starting level guys, you need starting level guys, hopefully shooters, right? Specifically shooters, right? But because I don't think you're going to be able to get 3-and-D wings. Like, I don't think we're going to be able to trade for an OG Anunoby or something like that. I just don't see that happening. But I do think you could get like a Bojan Bogdanovic and like maybe a Josh Richardson, right? Like, that's solid. There you go. Or maybe you could get Bojan and an Alec Burke, right? Boom, there you go. You get those pieces, I think we're off to the races and we have a real chance to win this year. I really do. At least the Western Conference, right? Like, there's not any teams in the West that I'm really afraid of as we currently stand, and then you add, say, a Bojan and Alec Burke, 2 guys that are shooting 43% from 3. What that also does is that allows like guys like Austin Reeves and some of your starting level guys like Troy Brown, who's been starting, JTA, all those guys now get to go to the bench and actually be like part of the bench unit and bench production. Now Russ has got some actual pieces he could play on the bench with, right? Rather than Austin Reeves having to be our like 3rd or 4th best starter, right? Like, that's not what we want. Like, he's supposed to be our 6th, 7th guy, and then we're on a really good team, right? And that's where we need to be, right? Once you get into the playoffs, you trust your big 3. You trust your big three to do the rest, right? Even if you do a trade, like let's say we're able to figure out some home run trade, right? Like let's say we're able to get, like I said, let's say Alec Burke and Bojan Bogdanovic, two 43+% 3-point shooters. You got Alec Burke, who could be your starting shooting guard, 3-and-D type guy. You got Bojan, who's shooting 50, 40, 90. That opens the floor tremendously. You got all this, Schroeder, AD, LeBron, Russ, all those guys can now penetrate and get into the hoop easier. It just opens the floor more because teams can't leave Bojan and Alec Burke wide open, and this team is off to the races. At the end of the day, we go as far as these three guys take us, right? Anthony Davis has to be healthy. Even with the schedule, even with as good as the schedule I believe is, and as many games as I think we can win, and I think we could be, easily 7 games, maybe more, over 500 by the time the season's over. Like I really do. I really believe that we could be several games over 500 by the time the season's over. If we do, and we are able to do that, right? Like you're going to need Anthony Davis along the way, and you're going to need Anthony Davis in the playoffs. He has to be able to stay healthy. Same thing with LeBron James. At some point, you're going to need LeBron. You're going to need to get LeBron some rest here and cut his minutes down. He's been, playing 40+ minutes a game, which is understandable. AD's out, and he's trying to keep us alive and afloat. Russ has been Mr. Energizer Bunny. He's just a tank full of gas constantly. But still, you don't want to wear these guys down. But we got in such a bad hole to start that now we have to play catch up the rest of the way. And that's not what we had intended to do. But once we've caught up, I believe that we'll be able to weather the rest of the season to stay in a playoff position. And whether we're the 1 seed or the 6 seed, if you just get into the playoffs, I'll take our chances, right? Like even if we're the 6 seed, right? I am confident we can make some noise. Right? I mean, if we were the 6th seed, we would play the Sacramento Kings in the first round. Right? And look, Sacramento is no slouch. Don't get me wrong. I really like Sacramento this year, but that's a team that's never been to the playoffs. And we with our experience and stuff, we should be able to beat that team. Now, all of a sudden, you're in the second round, right? And let's say, we're playing, whomever. Let's say we're playing the Nuggets. Like, we're a team that can beat the Denver Nuggets, right? Like, we're a team that can handle the Denver Nuggets. I like, for whatever reason, we've always had their number. I think AD at the 5, playing guard and Joker, I think we'll be good. They don't have the interior defense to stop Russ and LeBron. All of a sudden, we're in the Western Conference Finals, right? And let's say we're playing the Warriors or the Mavericks or the Grizzlies. Like, I'm with it. Bring it. Even if we're playing the Clippers, like, let's go. I don't think there's not a team that I look at and go, man, there's no way we're beating them in a 7-game series. I really believe we could beat those teams. So hopefully we can make this push. Hopefully we could get there because the Lakers are there. They're right there. You make a solid trade. AD comes back and is healthy. We got a reasonable schedule. It's tough, don't get me wrong, right? But we have a very reasonable schedule the rest of the way. I really believe we can win, several. We could win at least 10+ games over 500, which would put us, 5, 6, 7, 8 games over 500 by the end of the season. That stretch in April, those last 5 games, I think all 5 games are very winnable. Our last 11 games, we could realistically go 11-0. Like, realistically, our last 11 games are all pretty favorable games. I mean, again, they're going to be tough games. I'm not saying that you're guaranteed to do it, but like our last 11 games from the bottom up, you got the Jazz, the Suns, the Clippers, the Jazz, the Rockets, the Timberwolves, the Bulls, the Thunder, the Suns, the Mavericks, the Magic, the Rockets, the Pelicans, and the Knicks, the Raptors, Grizzlies, right? So basically from that Raptors game down, you got, like, we could win all of those games. All of those games are winnable, right? So if we can do that, I think we're there. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments section below. What do you think? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you think, this team, we're there, we got it, we can make this happen? A solid trade, AD coming back, great news. Do you think no? Like, we need to see the trade, we need to see AD, all those things. However you feel, I'd love to hear it. Let me know down in the comment section below.